Everyone in Junsuk's world believed the same thing. That Yara Okafor was gone. Not dead. Just erased. When the chairman of Biko Group divorced her, the media narrative was clean and efficient. Cultural differences. Private disagreements. A mutual decision. Her return overseas. No interviews. No photos. No farewell. The truth was simpler and crueler. Yara left because staying meant disappearing anyway. She had walked out of the glass tower in Gangnam, pregnant, carrying nothing but a small leather bag and a Korean phrase she'd practiced for weeks but never used. I don't belong here anymore. Junsuk never stopped her. And now, more than a decade later, a sealed envelope arrived on his desk with no sender. Inside was a hospital admission slip. Patient, Yara Okafor. Status, critical. Emergency contact, blank. And beneath it, written by hand. She asked for you. The elevator descended in silence. Junsuk watched the floor numbers fall, each one stripping away another layer of certainty. 14th floor approaching. His driver remained in the lobby. Some visits required witnesses. Others demanded their absence. The doors opened to antiseptic white and the low hum of machines keeping strangers alive. A nurse passed without looking up. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lined with identical doors. Each one concealing a different kind of ending. Room 1407 was at the far end. Junsuk's footsteps were measured. Deliberate. The kind of walk that had closed billion-won deals and silenced boardrooms. But here, in this corridor that smelled of bleach and resignation, his stride meant nothing. He stopped 3 meters from the door. Through the small window, he could see the edge of a bed. White sheets. The glow of monitors. He had built an empire on certainty. On knowing outcomes before decisions were made. On controlling variables that others couldn't see. But standing outside room 1407, Kang Junsuk had no script. No leverage. No plan. Just a decade-old absence and a note that shouldn't exist. His hand moved toward the door handle. Then stopped. Because somewhere deep in his chest, a question surfaced that he had buried for 15 years. What if she remembered everything he tried to forget? He pushed the door open. The room was smaller than he expected. Dimmer. A single lamp cast soft light across pale walls. The television murmured in the corner, a variety show playing to no one. And there, beneath white sheets that seemed too heavy for her frame, lay Yara Okafor. She didn't turn. Didn't flinch. As if she'd been waiting all along. Junsuk stepped inside and let the door close behind him. The sound it made was final. Yara Okafor arrived in Seoul on a Tuesday in late spring. Not as a bride. As a translator. She had been hired by Biko Group to facilitate negotiations with a Nigerian petroleum firm. 3 weeks. Professional capacity. Return flight already booked. Junsuk met her in a conference room on the 42nd floor. She wore navy. Spoke 4 languages. Took notes without breaking eye contact. He married her 6 months later. The media called it unprecedented. A chairman of one of Korea's oldest conglomerates marrying a foreign woman with no family wealth, no political ties, no strategic value. Speculation ran wild for weeks. Then it stopped. Because Biko Group's PR machine was efficient. The narrative was shaped, polished, and delivered with surgical precision. A modern love story. A bridge between cultures. A testament to progress. Yara learned quickly that progress had limits. At formal dinners, she sat beside Junsuk but was rarely addressed directly. Conversations flowed around her in rapid Korean she was still learning. When she spoke, smiles were polite. Responses were brief. She was studied. Admired from a distance. Never fully included. The apartment they shared in Hanam-Dong was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. Marble countertops. Silence that stretched for days. Jun-suk worked late. Always. Yara filled the hours with language apps, Korean dramas, and long walks through neighborhoods where no one recognized her. She sent letters home but stopped after her mother's third reply. "Are you happy?" Yara never answered. Because happiness wasn't the contract. The divorce announcement came on a Thursday. Same efficiency. Same polished language. Due to irreconcilable cultural differences and personal priorities, Kang Jun-suk and Yara Okafor have mutually agreed to dissolve their marriage. Ms. Okafor will be returning to her home country. The family requests privacy during this transition. No legal battle. No public statements. No alimony demands. Yara simply left. One suitcase. One leather bag. One taxi to Incheon Airport. The press assumed she went back to Lagos. She didn't. She disappeared into a small apartment in Suwon, 30 kilometers south of Seoul. Somewhere unremarkable. Somewhere invisible. And she never asked Jun-suk for a single one. On their wedding night, Yara couldn't sleep. Not from excitement. From the weight of what she'd agreed to. The penthouse suite overlooked Gangnam, glass walls framing a city that glittered like scattered diamonds. Jun-suk stood by the window, still in his suit, phone pressed to his ear. Speaking in low tones, she couldn't decipher. She sat on the edge of the bed, wedding dress folded carefully in the closet, wearing a silk robe that wasn't hers. When he finally ended the call, he turned to her. "You should rest," he said. Not an invitation. A suggestion. That pattern repeated for 3 years. Jun-suk operated on schedules she never saw. Meetings that stretched past midnight. Business trips are announced hours before departure. Entire weeks where they inhabited the same space but existed in separate orbits. Yara adapted. She learned which questions he wouldn't answer. Which silences meant danger. Which absences were routine and which carried weight. She also learned things he never intended to teach her. The names that made his jaw tighten. The calls he took in other rooms. The documents were left briefly unattended on his desk. Biko Group wasn't just a conglomerate. It was a system. One built on relationships that predated laws. On agreements made in private rooms with men whose faces never appeared in annual reports. Yara saw the edges of it. The careful choreography. The way certain people arrived through side entrances. The transactions that existed only in ledgers she wasn't supposed to notice. She never asked about them. But she remembered. There were moments when the distance between them collapsed. Late nights when exhaustion stripped away his composure. When he'd sit across from her at the kitchen island, tie loosened, and ask about her day as if he genuinely wanted to know. Mornings when she'd wake to find him still beside her, rare and unexpected. Once, after a particularly brutal week, he rested his head on her shoulder and said nothing for 20 minutes. She didn't move. Didn't speak. Just let him exist without performance. Those moments were islands. Brief and never discussed afterward. The pregnancy changed something. Yara noticed first. The nausea. The exhaustion that felt different. She took 3 tests before believing the results. She planned how to tell him. Rehearsed the words in Korean and English. Imagined his reaction. But the timing never came. Because the night she decided to speak, she overheard a conversation. Jun-suk and his counsel. In the study. Door slightly ajar. Children complicate succession, the counsel said. Especially now. Especially with her background. Jun-suk's response was quiet. I know. You should consider. I know. Yara stood in the hallway, hand pressed against her stomach, understanding perfectly. She never told him. 2 months later, she walked out of the glass tower carrying a secret that would outlive their marriage. And Jun-suk, who controlled so much, never knew what he'd lost. He spoke her name once. Quietly. Her eyes opened. Not in surprise. In recognition. "You came," she said, in Korean that carried an accent she never bothered to lose. Jun-suk nodded, once. "You shouldn't be here," she continued. "They're watching." "Who?" he asked. Yara smiled faintly. "You always ask that too late." She turned her head slightly, eyes drifting to the window. The city lights blurred like distant stars. "I didn't put your name on the form," she said. "Someone else did." The room felt smaller. Jun-suk glanced instinctively toward the door. "No one followed me," he said. "That's what they want you to think." She closed her eyes again. "You still underestimate how expensive silence is." Jun-suk pulled a chair closer but didn't sit. "You're sick," he said. Yara laughed, a dry sound that ended in a cough. "That's what they told you." He didn't answer. She opened her eyes again, sharper now. "Did you ever wonder," she asked, "why I never asked you for money?" The question landed heavier than any accusation. "I built my own life," she continued. "I learned how systems move. Who they protect. Who they discard." Jun-suk folded his hands behind his back. "And why call me now?" he asked. Yara looked at him for a long moment. "Because I don't have time," she said. "And because the lie you've been living is about to collapse." The monitors beeped steadily. Indifferent to confessions. Jun-suk moved to the window, putting distance between them. Below, Seoul sprawled in all directions. A city built on ambition and buried secrets. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "In this hospital?" "4 days." "In Korea?" Yara's silence was answer enough. He turned back to face her. "You never left." "No." "Where?" "Places you'd never think to look." She shifted slightly, wincing. The 4-line tugged at her wrist. "I watched you," she said. "From a distance. Promotions. Expansions. That acquisition in Singapore." Jun-suk's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "You kept track." "I had to," Yara replied. "Survival required knowing when you moved." "And who moved with you?" A nurse passed in the hallway outside. Footsteps fading. "The envelope," Jun-suk said. "Who sent it?" Yara's gaze held steady. "Someone who wants you here." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting tonight." The television continued its muted chatter. Celebrities laughing at jokes that didn't reach this room. Jun-suk finally sat, the chair scraping slightly against the floor. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Yara closed her eyes. "Nothing you're prepared to give." And for the first time since entering room 1407, Kang Jun-suk understood that this reunion wasn't about reconciliation. It was a transaction. One he didn't yet know the terms of. She reached slowly toward the drawer beside her bed. Jun-suk moved instinctively to help, but she stopped him with a look. "I need to do this myself." Her fingers trembled as she pulled out a thin folder. Old. Worn. Opened too many times. She placed it on the bed between them. Inside was a photograph. A boy. About 10 years old. Black hair. Dark eyes. Standing in front of Namsan Tower, holding a paper cup of hotyak, smiling awkwardly at the camera. Jun-suk didn't breathe. "You didn't want children," Yara said calmly. "You said the world you lived in didn't allow room for softness." She swallowed. "So I never told you I was already carrying one." The room seemed to tilt. "What's his name?" Jun-suk asked. Yara shook her head. I never gave him your last name, she said. That was the only protection I could offer. Jun-suk stared at the photograph. He's alive, he asked. For now. The two words carried weight that pressed against his chest. Jun-suk picked up the photo with careful hands. The boy's smile was uncertain, caught mid-moment. Behind him, tourists blurred into the background. Ordinary. Unremarkable. When was this taken? He asked. 2 years ago. Where is he now? Yara didn't answer immediately. The monitors continued their steady rhythm. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, growing fainter. Somewhere safe, she finally said. Somewhere your world hasn't touched. Jun-suk set the photo down. Does he know about me? No. Nothing. I told him his father worked far away. That some people aren't built for closeness. The word struck cleanly. You raised him alone, Jun-suk said. I raised him free. She coughed again, longer this time. Her hand found the edge of the blanket, gripping it until the spell passed. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. He's good at math. Terrible at sports. Reads too much. Asks questions I can't always answer. Jun-suk heard something beneath the words. Not regret. Something else. Pride. He doesn't know what you are, Yara continued. What Biko really does. The things you've built. The things you've buried. And you want to keep it that way. I wanted to, she corrected. Past tense. Jun-suk leaned forward. What changed? Yara's eyes found his. They found out he exists. The air in the room shifted. Who? I don't know their names, she said. But I know their methods. Questions in the wrong places. Cameras where they shouldn't be. Someone following him home from school last week. Jun-suk's hands curled into fists. Where is he now? He asked again, harder this time. Hidden. That's not good enough. It has to be. She reached for the photograph, covering it with her palm. They don't know who he is yet, she said. Only that he's connected to me. And now, because you're here, connected to you. Jun-suk stood abruptly, the chair scraping back. I can protect him. No, Yara said firmly. You can't. I have resources. Resources leave trails. Protection requires visibility. Visibility gets children killed. The conviction in her voice stopped him. Then why tell me, he asked. Why bring me here? Yara's expression softened, just slightly. Because I'm dying, she said. And he'll need to know the truth eventually. She paused. But not yet. Jun-suk moved to the window again, needing distance from the photograph that had rewritten his entire history. 12 years ago, Yara said behind him. Do you remember the Incheon biotech acquisition? He turned slowly. Yes. You shut it down 3 weeks before closing. Jun-suk's eyes narrowed. The financials didn't align. Someone was moving money incorrectly. Not incorrectly, Yara said. Deliberately. The city lights below seemed to pulse in rhythm with the monitors. What are you saying? Yara shifted against her pillows, the effort visible. I was already gone by then. Living in Suwon. Pregnant. Alone. I needed insurance. Insurance against what? Against disappearing completely. She let that settle. I had access to Biko's systems longer than you knew. Passwords you never changed. Accounts you thought were secure. Jun-suk's jaw tightened. You stole from me. I redirected, she corrected. Small amounts. Dispersed transactions. Nothing that would trigger audits. Just enough to build leverage. Leverage for what? Survival. The word hung between them like smoke. Jun-suk crossed back to the bed, standing over her now. You manipulated a 40 billion won deal. I prevented it from closing, Yara said calmly. The biotech firm was legitimate. But I made the numbers look wrong. Created discrepancies you couldn't ignore. Why? Because that firm had ties to people who were watching you. People who would have used that acquisition to learn things about Biko you didn't want known. Jun-suk went still. How did you? I listened, she said simply. For 3 years, I sat in rooms where men forgot I understood Korean. I watched patterns. Learned who called whom. Which deals mattered and which were covers. She coughed, wincing. You thought I was decorative. Harmless. A cultural experiment that failed. I never. You did, Yara interrupted. Everyone did. That's why it worked. The television's glow painted shadows across her face. When I left, I took copies. Documents. Communications. Enough to prove what I'd done. And enough to prove what Biko really was. Jun-suk's voice dropped. Where are they? Safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one that keeps us both alive. A phone buzzed. Jun-suk's. He ignored it. You've been holding this over me for a decade, he said. No, Yara replied. I've been holding it in reserve. There's a difference. And now? Now someone else knows it exists. The room felt colder. Who? Yara's eyes closed briefly. I don't know yet. But 3 days ago, my apartment was searched. Nothing taken. Nothing disturbed. Just moved. Slightly. Enough to send a message. What message? That silence has an expiration date. Jun-suk processed this, his mind already running scenarios. The hospital admission, he said. It wasn't random. No. You're bait. Yara smiled without humor. We both are. Outside, footsteps passed in the corridor. Slowed. Continued. Whoever sent that envelope to you, Yara said, wanted you here. Wanted confirmation that we're still connected. Then they have it. Yes. Jun-suk looked at the photograph still resting on the bed. And they'll use him. They'll try. The monitors beeped. Steady. Indifferent. Tell me where the documents are, Jun-suk said. No. Yara. If you know, you become a target. If you're a target, he becomes leverage. She opened her eyes, meeting his directly. The biotech deal. That was just the beginning. There are other files. Other transactions. Things that would unravel Biko from the inside. Jun-suk felt something cold settle behind his ribs. You've been building a case. I've been building insurance, she corrected again. Against the day when someone decided I knew too much. That day is here. Yes. The footsteps returned. Slower this time. Deliberate. Jun-suk didn't move, but his posture changed. Shoulders squared. Weight shifted slightly forward. Yara noticed. Don't, she whispered. The footsteps stopped outside room 1407. A shadow appeared in the gap beneath the door. Paused. Remained. Seconds stretched. Then the shadow moved on. Fading down the corridor. Jun-suk waited another 30 seconds before speaking. How many are watching? I've counted 3, Yara said. But there are probably more. Hospital staff. Some. Maybe. It's hard to tell who's legitimately working and who's working for someone else. She shifted, grimacing. The nurse who checks on me every hour asks questions she shouldn't. My insurance information. Whether I have family visiting. Where I lived before admission. You didn't answer. I smiled. Said little. Gave her nothing useful. Jun-suk pulled his phone out and checked the screen. 4 missed calls. All from his head of security. He silenced it. They know I'm here, he said. Of course they do. My people. Your people are good, Yara interrupted. But this isn't about physical security. This is about information. About who knows what, and when. She coughed again, longer this time. When she recovered, her breathing was shallower. There's a man, she said. Comes in twice a day. Wears a maintenance uniform. Never cleans anything. Just walks the floor. Checks rooms. You're sure he's surveillance? He looked at me once. Really looked. Like he was confirming something. Jun-suk filed that detail away. Which rooms does he check? This floor. Maybe others. I only notice when he's near mine. The television shifted to a commercial. Bright colors. Cheerful music. Absurdly out of place. The hospital itself, Jun-suk said. Is it compromised? I don't think so. Not entirely. But rooms can be bought. Access can be arranged. Schedules can be adjusted. She paused. This isn't neutral ground anymore. If it ever was. Jun-suk moved to the door, peering through the small window into the hallway. Empty. For now. You should leave, Yara said behind him. No. Every minute you stay, you confirm what they suspect. Which is? That I still matter to you. He turned back to face her. You do. The admission landed quietly. Yara's expression didn't change, but something passed through her eyes. That makes us both vulnerable, she said. Then we're vulnerable. You have an empire to protect. I have a son I didn't know existed. The words came out harder than intended. Yara looked away. Sentiment is a liability in your world, she said. You taught me that. I was wrong. No. You were accurate. A phone rang somewhere distant. Muffled through walls. Jun-suk checked the hallway again. Still empty. There's a service exit, he said. 2 floors down. I can have a car waiting in 15 minutes. And go where? Yara asked. Your penthouse. A safe house. Anywhere you take me becomes a location they'll target. Then we disappear you properly. I'm dying, Jun-suk. The words were clinical. Final. Moving me just moves the timeline. He didn't respond. But the boy, she continued. He can still disappear. If you leave now. If you don't come back. You're asking me to abandon you. I'm asking you to choose. The monitors beeped. Footsteps echoed again. Closer. Jun-suk sat down heavily. The chair creaked under his weight, the only sound besides the machines and the distant hum of the hospital's ventilation system. I don't know how to be a father, he said. It wasn't an excuse. Just a fact. Yara's expression softened, barely. Neither did I. In the beginning. You had time to learn. I had necessity, she corrected. Time just made the necessity clearer. She reached for the photograph again, tracing its edges with her thumb. The first year, I was terrified. Every fever. Every cough. Every milestone I didn't understand. Her voice carried memory now, not just words. I read books in 3 languages. Joined online forums. Watched other mothers at playgrounds and tried to copy what they did. Jun-suk listened. He cried for 6 months straight, Yara continued. Nothing helped. Not feeding. Not walking. Not singing. I thought I was failing him. What stopped it? Time. Development. Mystery. She smiled faintly. Parenthood is mostly improvisation. Pretending you know while learning as you go. You made it look intentional. I made it look survived. The distinction mattered. Jun-suk stared at the photograph. The boy's awkward smile. The ordinary backdrop. What's he like? He asked. Yara's eyes brightened slightly. Curious. Too curious sometimes. Asks why the sky changes color. Why do people speak different languages? Why do some families have two parents and others have one? What do you tell him? The truth. When I can. Stories when I can't. She coughed, covering her mouth. He built a robot once. Out of cardboard and tape. Spent 2 weeks on it. Cried when it fell apart. Did you fix it? No. I sat with him while he decided whether to rebuild or let it go. Which did he choose? Rebuild. Always rebuild. Jun-suk felt something unfamiliar move through his chest. He sounds like you. He sounds like himself, Yara said. That's the point. She turned her head toward the window. I never wanted him to carry your legacy. Or mine. Just his own. Legacy isn't a choice. Yes, it is, she said firmly. You choose whether to inherit silence or truth. Fear or possibility. And you chose truth. I chose protection. Truth came later. The television shifted to a late-night news program. Headlines scrolling silently. Jun-suk leaned forward. If I'd known. You would have done what? Yara interrupted. Married me differently. Loved me better. The question wasn't cruel. Just direct. I don't know, he admitted. Neither do I. She took a slow breath. But I know what would have happened to him. Born into Biko. Raised under scrutiny. Every mistake is magnified. Every success attributed to your name, not his effort. That's not inevitable. In your world, it is. Jun-suk had no counter. Power attracts attention, Yara continued. Attention creates expectation. Expectation becomes prison. So you chose invisibility. I chose freedom. The monitors beeped steadily. And now, he asked. Now I'm dying. And freedom has a different cost. Her hand found his. Weak but deliberate. You can't protect him the way you protect assets. Can't control him the way you control boardrooms. Then how? By staying away. Until he's ready to choose for himself. Jun-suk's grip tightened slightly. That could be years. Or never. The possibility settled like stone. You're asking me to walk away from my son. I'm asking you to let him grow up without your shadow. That's the same thing. No, Yara said. It's the opposite. Her breathing grew more labored. A machine beeped differently, sharper. She winced, pressing a hand to her side. Yara. I'm fine. You're not. Fine enough for this conversation. But her face had gone pale. Sweat beaded at her temples. Jun-suk reached for the call button. She stopped him. Not yet. You need. I need you to understand, she interrupted. Fatherhood isn't ownership. It's a witness. Letting him become without controlling what he becomes. Another sharp breath. Can you do that? Jun-suk didn't answer. Because he honestly didn't know. Yara's breathing steadied, but the pallor remained. She released his hand slowly, as if the gesture had cost her. There's something else, she said. Jun-suk waited. The files I mentioned. The documents. What about them? They're not hidden in a safe deposit box or buried in some lawyer's office. She paused, gathering strength. They're automated. Scheduled to release if certain conditions are met. Jun Suk's expression darkened. What conditions? If I don't check in every 72 hours, everything publishes. Financial records. Communications. Names. Dates. Connections between Biko and entities you've spent decades keeping separate. Where does it publish? Everywhere. Media outlets. Regulatory agencies. International financial oversight bodies. The room felt airless. You built a dead man's switch. I built survival, Yara corrected. While I'm alive and checking in, nothing releases. But if something happens to me, the empire burns. Your empire, she said. Not mine. Jun Suk stood, pacing the small space between the bed and the window. How long since your last check-in? 41 hours. You have 31 hours left. Yes. And if you check in from this hospital bed? Then the clock resets. For another 72 hours. But? Yara's eyes followed his movement. But whoever's watching will know I'm still functional. Still capable. Still a threat. And if you don't check in? Then Biko Group's carefully constructed legitimacy collapses. Stock prices crater. Investigations launch. Partners distance themselves. She coughed. And the people who've been circling? They move in. Claim what's left. Jun Suk stopped at the window. Below, Seoul continued its indifferent sprawl. Millions of lives were unaware that 14 floors up, a decision was being calibrated that could reshape corporate Korea. This is extortion, he said quietly. This is insurance, Yara replied. There's a difference. Not from where I'm standing. Then stand somewhere else. The sharpness in her voice cut through. Jun Suk turned back. You're using our son as leverage. No, she said firmly. I'm using Biko's secrets as leverage. Our son is what I'm protecting. By threatening everything I've built. By ensuring that if something happens to me, there's a cost. A cost high enough that even your enemies will think twice. The logic was brutal. Effective. Completely ruthless. Where did you learn to think like this? He asked. Yara smiled without warmth. From you. The accusation landed. I watched how you negotiated, she continued. How you turned vulnerability into a position. How you made people believe they had choices when you'd already determined the outcome. I never taught you. You taught me everything. Just not intentionally. A phone buzzed again. Different tone. Jun Suk checked it. His security chief. Third call in 20 minutes. He declined it. If you don't check in, he said slowly, and the files are released, you lose your leverage. I lose my insurance, Yara agreed. But the damage is done. And damage protects him differently. How? Because in the chaos, he becomes irrelevant. Just another victim of circumstance. Not a target. Not valuable. Jun Suk processed this. You'd destroy my life's work to save his anonymity. Without hesitation. The monitors beeped steadily. What's in the files? He asked. Specifically. Yara's eyes held his. Do you really want to know? Yes. She took a slow breath. The Singapore land acquisition in 2019. You bought it through 3 shell corporations. The files show who really owned the shells. Jun Suk's jaw tightened. The pharmaceutical merger in 2021. I have recordings of the meetings where you discussed price fixing. Those were preliminary discussions. They were conspiring. On tape. She continued. The political donations are routed through cultural foundations. The infrastructure contracts won through prearranged bids. The environmental reports you paid to have rewritten. Each revelation was a knife. And the Incheon biotech deal, she finished. Not just what I did. But why you were really pursuing it. The genetics research. The data you wanted access to. Jun-suk said nothing. That's what's in the files, Yara said. Enough to dismantle Biko. Enough to put you and a dozen others in prison. Why tell me this? So you understand what you're choosing between. The footsteps returned. Closer now. Multiple sets. Yara's eyes flicked to the door. They're early, she said. Jun-suk straightened, his expression unreadable. I left instructions, she continued quickly. If anything happens to me, the file goes public. You already said that. I'm saying it again so you remember. When they come through that door. The footsteps stopped outside room 1407. Jun-suk moved toward the bed, standing between Yara and the entrance. How do I stop the files? He asked quietly. You don't. Yara. You save him instead. The door handle turned. And Kang Jun-suk realized that the most dangerous deal of his life had never been made in a boardroom. The door opened. A nurse entered. Young. Efficient. Carrying a tray of medications. Not a threat. Just routine. She glanced at Jun-suk, then at Yara, her expression professionally neutral. Time for evening medications, she said in Korean. Yara nodded. The nurse worked quickly. Checking 4 lines. Adjusting dosages. Recording vitals on a tablet. She left without asking questions. The door clicked shut. Jun-suk exhaled slowly. You thought that was them, Yara said. Yes. So did I. The adrenaline faded, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Jun-suk returned to the chair, sitting heavily. 29 hours, he said. Until I need to check in. Yes. And if I move you before then? The system won't recognize a check-in from an unknown location. It's calibrated to specific parameters. My apartment. My phone. Biometric confirmation. So you have to go back. Or not check in at all. The choice hung between them. Jun-suk leaned forward, elbows on knees. Tell me where he is. Yara shook her head. I can protect him. Not the way he needs. Then how? She reached out, her hand finding his again. By letting him grow up normal. Unaware. Free. Until when? Until he's old enough to choose. To understand what your world means. What it costs. That could be years. Or decades. Jun-suk's voice roughened. You're asking me to be a stranger to my own son. I'm asking you to be absent so he can be present. In his own life. She squeezed his hand. You weren't built for small moments. Homework. Scraped knees. School recitals. You were built for empire. Let him be built for something else. What if he wants to know me? Then someday, he'll look. And if he doesn't? Yara's eyes glistened. Then you'll know you gave him something you never had. What's that? Choice. The television shifted programming. A late movie starting. Black and white footage from decades past. Jun-suk stared at their joined hands. I don't know if I can do this. You don't have to know. You just have to decide. It's the same thing. No, Yara said softly. Knowing is certainty. Deciding is faith. She took a labored breath. I made my decision 11 years ago. Walked out carrying him. Built a life you couldn't touch. It wasn't easy. Some days it was impossible. Her voice cracked slightly. But he's here. Alive. Whole. Untouched by what we were. What we are, Jun-suk corrected. What you are, she said. I stopped being part of your world the day I left. She released his hand. Don't come looking for him, she whispered. Don't use your resources. Your networks. Your people. Then how will I? You won't. Unless he finds you first. Jun-suk stood slowly. You're asking for a promise I don't know how to keep. I'm asking for sacrifice. That's different. The monitors beeped. Steady. Relentless. What's his name? Jun-suk asked one final time. Yara smiled sadly. When he's ready, he'll tell you himself. Footsteps echoed again in the hallway. These ones didn't pass. They stopped. Shadows appeared beneath the door. Multiple. Waiting. Yara's eyes widened slightly. Go, she whispered urgently. The service stairs. Third door on the left. Jun-suk didn't move. Now, she insisted. Before they confirm you're here. I can. You can leave. That's all. That's everything. The door handle moved. Testing. Not opening yet. Yara's grip found his sleeve one last time. Promise me, she said. Let him find you. Jun-suk looked at her. Really looked. Memorizing features that had once been familiar. That had become stranger. That were now something else entirely. I promise, he said. The lie tasted like ash. Or maybe it was truth. He couldn't tell anymore. Yara must have known. Must have heard the uncertainty. But she nodded anyway. Go. Jun-suk moved toward the window, then stopped. The check-in, he said. 29 hours. I know. Will you? Yara's expression was unreadable. That's my decision. Not yours. The handle turned fully now. Jun-suk slipped through the far door, into a dimly lit corridor he'd barely noticed on entry. Behind him, room 1407's main door opened. Voices. Low. Professional. He didn't look back. The service stairs swallowed him in concrete and fluorescent light. His footsteps echoed downward. 1 floor. 2. At ground level, he pushed through an unmarked exit into cold night air. His driver appeared within seconds, pulling the car alongside. Jun-suk climbed in. Sir, the driver asked. Drive. Where to? Jun-suk stared out the window as Seoul National University Hospital receded behind them. White. Indifferent. Keeping its secrets. Anywhere, he said quietly. But he knew the truth. There was nowhere far enough. Not from the woman dying 14 floors up. Not from the son who didn't know his name. Not from the choice he'd just made, or failed to make. The car merged into late-night traffic. And Kang Jun-suk sat in darkness, holding a photograph of a boy who might never call him father. Wondering if 29 hours was enough time for redemption. Or just enough time for everything to end.